sector, it means both the public and the private companies. Whoever is a company comes under the Company Act and comes under the company ministry or corporate affairs ministry now as it is called. So when we talk about the corporate sector, we have certain fundamental issues which are guided by the Indian Companies Act. This is a 1956 vintage Company Act. There have been 22 amendments to make it up to date, but the people feel that it needs to be completely revamped, and the country, the modern country, needs a new Company Act, a new company law. Accordingly, we have drafted a company law, again in consultation process, and last year our minister has placed on the table of the House of the Parliament, and the Parliament has formed a committee, a standing committee, which has already looked into clause by clause analysis. As you all know, the standing committee has a large number of MPs coming from various parties, various political parties, and they have submitted their report to the Parliament on the last day of the monsoon session, that is to be exact, 31st of August 2010. Now, those recommendations are with us, and we believe that by the end of this financial year, in the next session, that budget session, we will be able to place the company law, company bill for the Parliament to consider, and hopefully the end of the financial year we will have a new Company Act. Now, having said that, what is the basic emphasis of the new Company Act? What are the basic characteristics that we talk about? There comes the idea of the corporate governance, there comes the idea of the corporate social responsibility, there comes the idea of the new change of the accounting system. So that is how we try to embed in the corporate law, and it is valid not only for the few companies, but it is valid for the entire country, the entire corporate sector, all the companies who have been registered and functioning as companies in the country. That is how we have been proceeding. Now, the point that we have been trying to mention about the corporate law, and particularly about the corporate governance, there are various issues to the corporate governance. You all know about the global meltdown. Fortunately, India it certainly was affected, but not to that extent that the Western countries have been affected. Again, it goes to the credit of our regulatory mechanism, our governmental procedures, the agility of our corporate sector. And I must say, because I was also Secretary Department of Public DPE, the Public Enterprises, a great help has come from the public enterprises. I remember during those days, every week I used to monitor the investment proposals of all our Navaratna companies, so that the investment does not stop because of the global meltdown. And that has helped the entire country, the entire economy, under the directions of the Cabinet Secretary. Though I was a fairly junior secretary at that time, but most of the persons, most of the companies, we have been able to maintain the growth and the investment at the same level. That was very, very helpful. Now, the other thing that the public sector has done, our friend from the State Bank has left, all the public sector enterprises have given their deposit to the banks at the current rate of interest. Normally, the system was that they can sort of make an auction type of thing, and whoever gives the better rate of interest, they give it. The then finance minister at that time, because a lot of money has been spent from the bank to the agriculture sector, in order to compensate, all the public sector deposits were given at the card rate of interest. That, of course, at that point of time, none of our good friends like Mr. Vishnu and others, they did not like it. But in overall Indian economy, in overall Indian system, that has really helped. And we have been able to overcome a lot of the problems that the global meltdown, the global crisis had created even in our country. So, historically, the public sector has done an excellent job, and I must congratulate the public sector for coming up, for rising to the occasions and doing their duties and responsibilities towards the country, towards the society. Now, when we talk about the corporate governance, it has many, many dimensions. People have talked about the functioning at the board level. People have talked about directors, independent directors. In our country, there have been a number of committees. Some of these things Mr. Vishnu has very much referred to, but this was Kumar Mangala Birla Committee. Then there was Mr. Murthy, Narayan Murthy Committee. Then there was Norris Chandra Committee. Different tabs on Dr. J.D. Irani Committee, which has looked into that. So there are different committees which have gone into this aspect. But the first time, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has given, in December 2009, a voluntary guideline to the corporate sector for corporate governance and a voluntary guideline for corporate social responsibility. Now, how have we done that? You know, we have now taken a decision, it will be annual functions. The third week of December has been declared as the India Corporate Week. It is from 14th to 21st. Last year, 2009, it was the first ever India Corporate Week, and on the 21st of December, in the presence of the President of India, we released these two voluntary guidelines, which then many corporate entities and corporate organizations, state and commerce bodies and the professional institutions, they have taken it forward. A large number of discussions, debates that is going on throughout the country. In that week itself, there was as many as 124 programs in different cities and towns in the country. In Hyderabad also there was a very large program there. And we discussed about the corporate governance and the corporate social responsibility. When we talk about this year also, this week is coming and the Honorable Prime Minister has agreed to inaugurate that on the 14th of December 2010 and in a program that Become Government. The emphasis we are now keeping as the sustainable business in the 21st century. So, from the corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, we have come to more generic term as a sustainable business in the 21st century, which obviously includes the corporate governance, includes the corporate social responsibility, includes the dimensions, other dimensions like environmental policy, environment-friendly policies. Those things have been inclusive of the sustainable business. When we talk about the international forum, OECD has been mentioned. We have been regular interactions with OECD. I have been speaking at the OECD forum. OECD has a set of guidelines when they are doing the business. There is another very important institution, it is called GRI, Global Reporting Initiative. That is headed by Professor King. His name has been mentioned. He was Supreme Court judge in South Africa. and he is now chairing that, of which we have been contributing from the Indian side. Now, the GRI reporting is much more, much beyond that the corporate governance. It considers many other aspects which are ethical in nature, which are environmental in nature, which goes beyond the purview of the corporate governance as we understand. So that is the way the current thinking is going. And in fact, the King's Code, which has become very famous, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, they have passed a resolution that unless you follow the King's Code, unless you go by this thing, no company can be listed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in South Africa. So that way the South Africa has given a name. I'm sure in many places, even in Australia and New Zealand and other parts of the world, they have been coming up with more new and new innovations. Now what is happening, Dr. Misra has referred to the Prince of Wales Committee. We have been suggesting in the international forum that look, there are only the financial report. As you know, our Act says that all your balance sheet, final account, has to be audited, has to be certified by a chartered accountant, whatever the company you may be. But that is only the financial aspect, it's the financial audit. Then GRI says that you have to go much beyond the financial aspect. OECD, if you go through their guideline, they expect that the corporate will follow certain guidelines, which goes against much beyond the financial audit. There are many other organizations you might have come across with the Global Compact, you might have come across with the bilateral different types of associations and organizations who are developing this. In our country, the CII has also developed a code, and almost 350 companies have been reporting as per the CII code. And in fact, the GRI also, I must tell you, 54 Indian companies have been satisfied or have been giving satisfactory report as per the GRI guideline. That's a good number. So that being the case, there is a tremendous feeling, tremendous opportunity to integrate these different types of formats, different types of reporting systems, and bring out something which will cover not only the financial part, but also the other dimensions of reporting. The whole world, the thinkers of the world, has been thinking in that line, and they are trying to develop that type of code. As many of you may be aware, that the financial reporting system is developed by an international committee of accountants, International Federation of Accountants, as they call IFAC. So IFAC has been considering this type of thing. They have consulted us. We also said that it is very important for the government to issue some sort of a integrated guideline, because I cannot ask our corporate sector that you produce this report, then you produce that report, then you produce that report. They may come up and tell that in the whole year if we produce 20 reports, then why do we do business? We have to have the time to do the business. So that being the case, there has been a committee under the chairmanship of the Prince of Wales, where they are looking at the integrated reporting system. Professor King is also the vice chairman. They have invited me to join in the committee. There are other persons from the various parts of the world. So maybe in course of time, they will develop some sort of an integrated reporting system which will answer, which may address many of the issues which goes beyond the corporate governance. Coming back to the Indian positions of the corporate governance, when we say the corporate governance, we have basically three things in mind. One, of course, many of the speakers have talked about, that is the transparency of the situations, the transparency of what is happening. I think that is a very basic thing, that transparency has to come. But there are two other very important things. Independent directors and a real sense of the term independent director. You know, my father-in-law becomes a member in my board. That does not make him independent director, though the law allows that as an independent director. So we have to do something about that. The independent director in the real sense of the term must be independent director. How independent the independent director is, that is the challenge, that is the question. Now, also the financial pecuniary interest of the independent director in some form or other, whether they are getting the stock options or what their sons and daughters getting the business of the company. Those are also very, very important issues. Now, these are before us. How independent is the independent director? What is the definition of independent? But the fact is that independent director, with the proper training, is a must. Now, there are two views again on that. Some people say that, okay, we will become independent director, but we will not be responsible for anything if the company does later on and found to be guilty. No, that is something again not acceptable. If you are a director of the board, whether independent or a executive director, you have to participate in the discussions. You have to tell what is happening. You have to guide, you have to direct the company, and you obviously. If you say that I have given a decent note, that has to be written, and people will see, yes, you have given that note. Now, it is very easy for me to say, but some of you must be independent directors in many of these organizations, it is really extremely difficult. So this is the challenge before the Indian corporate sector, before the lawmakers, how to make the independent director function properly. The third thing, which to my mind is very important, there are many other important things. I'm just taking the basic, some of the very basic points or basic criteria of making the corporate governance work is the auditor. How independent are auditors? Whether there should be a rotation of the auditors. We have come across in the company where the same auditor is auditing for 20 years. Now can you tell if the 20 years the auditors are auditing, can you call them an independent auditor? Even if you take the mere sheer lethargy of the thing, that auditor will probably miss so many things, which otherwise he or she should have pointed out. I don't want to give the examples of the companies, but many of you may be knowing. But that is the issue. Then, what will be the auditor's terms of reference? How responsible will be the auditors? How will you measure the responsibility of the auditors? And again, how independent are the independent auditors? How will you measure that? So these are some of the points. Those have to be very carefully looked into, and not taking one extreme position or other extreme position. One has to make certain promises which are workable, which can be implemented, and which will not hinder the growth of the corporate sector, but at the same time bring the transparency, bring the ethical view, bring the positive culture of the corporate sector. Mr. Vishnu has mentioned about the CMD, the chairman and the chief executive should be separated. I don't know whether you will be happy or unhappy. The new law that is coming, hopefully that will be passed through in the parliament. Our lawmakers have actually advised that, and we have accepted that advice. So I don't know what will be your posting after that, but the most affected persons will be the public sector CMDs. But generally, so far as the corporate governance is concerned, it is a strong feeling among the lawmakers. Of course, there are other views also, strong feelings that yes, these two should be separated. But as I said, there are other views also. The other very important point, I will be failing in my duties if I don't mention that India is a signatory, is a very proud member of the G20 and the G20 resolutions. We stand by that. In the G20, we had taken a decision that there will be a certain uniform standard of the account reporting, of the financial reporting. And accordingly, we have taken a decision that India will converge, not adopt, converge to the IFRS system. And we have made it, there is a core committee under my chairmanship where all the regulators are members. We have considered that there are two technical committees, one headed by Mr. Malegaon, who is the chairman of NACAS, who is a very famous chartered accountant, other headed by Mr. Mohandas Pai, who is the CFO's committee. Mohandas Pai is a well-known name, Infosys Director of Finance, and they have come out with different reports, and we have finally given a roadmap which is known to all of you. By April 2011, the top companies of the country who are in the NSE and BSE, as well as more than 1,000 crores capital, they will be paid up capital, they will be in the first phase, they will convert with IFRS. The insurance sector has come before us. They said that we have certain problems. Their regulators have also told that they have certain problems. We say, fine, you can take one more year. Banking sector came before us. They said that we have certain issues, certain problems. We say that, okay, you take some time, some more time before your issues are sorted out, and we have given them some time. Very small and tiny industries came before us. They say that, what do we do with the IFRS compliance? Why should we spend this extra money? We appreciate their argument, and we said that, okay, you don't have to necessarily convert with the IFRS. It will be optional for you. For you, we will keep the separate accounting system, the Indian accounting system, and the two accounting system will remain. However, if you feel that IFRS you should want to convert and you get some benefit at any point of time, you should do that. Now, in one line I must state, the IFRS has a direct relevance with the corporate governance. Many things will come up in the IFRS, which in the normal accounting system, it does not really come out. So it has a very important significance. I'm sure in the technical discussions that will be followed in the today and tomorrow, many of you may be highlighting on that subject. The last thing I should say is the corporate social responsibility. To my mind, corporate social responsibility is not an isolated thing from the corporate governance. If a company does not have a proper corporate governance, it cannot have a proper corporate social responsibility. The responsibility comes with the governance. And believe me, we are talking in this nice hotel, in this nice room. You go just 1 kilometer away. What is the feeling of the common people? They see, some discussion going there on the corporate. The corporate is branded with only 1% or 2% or maybe 5% of the people. The common people don't feel that they have something in it. They are not in it. They don't find any binding with the development of the corporate sector. The challenge for a country like ours is how to bring more and more people aligned to the development and growth of the corporate sector. Their mentality should be like that yes, if the corporate grows, we also grow, the country also grows, the GDP also grows, and we are direct beneficiaries. For that, the ministry has taken a very big program, which is known as the Investors Education Program. Earlier, the Investors Education Program used to be done in a very small level. The highest ever number of Investors Education Program that was done was last year. That was only 300. This year, we have taken a program that 3,000 Investors Education Programs throughout the country will be done. As many as 18 organizations have come with us and have been engaged in carrying out this book, carrying out and developing and also actually actually implementing this program. And 10 more have come later and joined later. And as I am talking to you today, already 3,500 programs have already been done, already been completed, and still we have 4 months to go complete this year. So it is possible to do something. Hundreds and thousands of people can come. They know what are the basic ideas of the investors, what they should know. It is not the ministry's case to tell that you invest in this company and don't invest in that company. That is not the way we are carrying out this investors education program. We are saying what an informed investor should know and must know. And on a more permanent basis, we have published small booklets, the basic guidance to the capital market. And in order to reach to the common people, we have translated that booklet in all the regional languages, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, all the regional languages, name it, Assamese, Bengalis, of course Hindi and English it is there, Gujarati, Marathi, all the languages we have translated. And we have a nationwide website. Our Honorable Prime Minister is going to launch it nationwide, where again the website for the investors, which is www.iepf.gov.in, will again be translated and launched in all the regional languages, an updated nationwide regional language best website for the investors that is going to be launched on 14th, and the people will come. The idea is more and more people should join the capital market, should understand the capital market, should feel free, should not be hesitant. When I was Deputy Secretary, one of my job was to convince our CMDs to join the capital market so that they can become listed. I had taken BSc along with me and held many meetings in different parts of the country. Now my job is, our CMDs are very much convinced. As you know, almost every month there is a new IPO coming on. Now my job is to convince the common people so that they can join, they can share, they can prosper in the capital market. That is what is needed. And also, this corporate social responsibility when we mean, we don't mean a charity. We don't mean that some few houses will be constructed or drinking water pumps will be commissioned. Yes, that is important, no doubt about it. I'm not saying don't do it. But the corporate social responsibility is much more than that. It is a win-win situation. It is also building your brand. If you do, I don't want to name the names of the companies as a secretary of the corporate ministry. But you know some of the companies, they get the extra mileage, extra dividend, because they have been doing this corporate social responsibility for a long time. It's important. The society must accept it. It is not only that the license you have to carry on the business, it is also the wider society, the larger society, must accept that company, must accept that corporate entity to do the business in that place. That is a very important system. It's a win-win situation. It brings your brand value. It ultimately shows in the share market also. The companies can get the profit. It is not a charity. In fact, it's a very subject very near to my heart, but I don't want to elaborate on that. If you are interested, you can hit the Google search and write the CSR, not a charity. You will get my interview with the Wharton Business School, which was given a few months back in USA. So CSR, not a charity. If you just hit the Google search, I'm sure you will get my entire interview on that, and it is on the website. So friends, I must tell you that we are on a growing path. As a country, we are a part of the G20. We are a nation who is listened to, who gets the importance of the international sphere. We have done and covered fairly well in the recent global meltdown situations. We have our own issues, own problems, but with intellectuals like you contributing from various fields, with the pathfinders like the young persons I see on the back, I am very hopeful that our country will be able to set an excellent mechanism, an excellent standard of corporate governance, which will take our corporate sector further and beyond our hope and belief. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your address, sir, rich with experience and promising ideas. At this moment, let's have the privilege of the release of Indian Journal of Corporate Governance by Shri Bandapalya IAS.